Okay, welcome everybody. It's a pleasure to welcome back Agnes Sandor from Grenoble, who is going to introduce us to the third session of this HETA training, online training, introducing the inner workings of the Athanor module in the writing analytics infrastructure. So over to you, Agnes.
Thank you very much, Simon, and welcome back. So I share my screen. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
So today we are going to walk through the analytical grammar files. Just to remind you about the goal of this course, it is in order to gain expertise in modifying the existing rhetorical analysis systems. Up to now, we have two systems, and one for analyzing analytical text and one for analyzing reflective text. So the program that I have proposed, which can be changed, of course, is first giving some theoretical and technical background, and we are at the end of this part now. We did a general description of the concept matching analysis framework. We saw the system architectures and the tools, and today we are walking through the existing system because it is very useful in order for you to understand exactly how it is built up and where and how you would need to intervene should you want to change this this system, which can very much be necessary at any point. So I've put here some very few reminder files, which maybe for you, it will be more useful than for the others who already know this very well. So the system that we are using for these grammars is called concept matching, and which is basically an analysis framework for identifying what we call rhetorically salient sentence types through patterns of concepts. So rhetorically salient sentence types are sentences that stand out in academic writing by conventionally indicating some moves in the academic writing. For example, one such move is indicating novelty. There is some novelty. And this novelty can be expressed by several ways, not several ways, but many ways. Like these new insights provide direct evidence of something, or here we suggest a new approach. These results define a novel role. And you see that all these sentences, especially the highlighted parts of these sentences, say that something new is going to be described or introduced. And this novelty is at some knowledge level. It is not the novelty of a new, all these novelties are novelties of ideas, not novelties of things that may a new kind of, for example, if there is I cannot think of a good example now, sorry. So it is a novelty of ideas that is introduced, and this constitutes the move of novelty. So in order to find such sentences, concept matching proposes a method to find underlying these moves concepts. And the two concepts that underlie the novelty move are new and idea concepts. So in each sentence, you find a word that instantiates the idea new, like new novel. This is a very simple example. And the idea concept is instantiated by insights, provide, evidence, suggest, approach, results, define. So this is the basis of concept matching, and for each rhetorical move, it proposes the underlying concepts. So on the one hand, it is an analysis framework, and on the other hand, yes, I forgot to say that in the instantiation of the concepts, there is a very strong constraint for the sentences, that the instantiation of these concepts should be syntactically related. Because if it is not the case, the move is not there. So you see new insights provide evidence, suggest new approach, results define novel role. These are coherent, syntactically related sequences in the sentence. So concept matching is also a method for implementing NLP systems that automatically detect these sentences. So what do we need for this NLP system in order that it can detect these sentences? We need to detect the relationships, the syntactic relationships within the sentences, which are the syntactic dependencies, which are detected in the system by the Stanford parser. And we need to have a repository of concepts, which are represented in the system as lexical features. So please at any time interrupt me if something is not clear. And we also need a system that implements the patterns as co-occurrence rules, that represents the patterns as co-occurrence rules. And this is done by Ethaner, which works on the Stanford parser output, and which was developed here at Naval Labs by my colleague Claude Roux.
Agnes,
yes,
can I ask you one question?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you go back to the previous slide? Okay. So if you look at, for example, if you look at the third paragraph, these results define a novel role of PKG. So in this sentence, so how does so there are three type of dependency relationships. Results and define, there is one relation, right?
Yes.
Dependency relation. Define role and the role, and the novel and roles. So
yes.
How do you define the grammar in order to detect this sentence indicate the novelty?
By co-occurrence rules, and this is exactly what we are going to go through today. It is entirely rule-based. So there is a rule that says if there is a sentence in which you have a dependency relationship between two words, one of which has the feature new and one of which has the feature idea, and this is not enough because a novel role, it's not enough. We need to have results define novel role. So there is another constraint which we will see today, that this sentence should also have some other dependency between two important words, or important words are the words that are that instantiate constituent concepts. Does this answer your question?
Okay.
We'll go through this today. It will be
multiple, logics gonna to and. There's and logic functions.
Exactly. It is Boolean operations. It is regular expressions.
Okay.
The grammar consists of regular expressions.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay. So here, this is the summary of all the rhetorically salient sentence types in the analytical parser, and here you see the basic constituent concepts whose combinations make up these moves, these sentence types. This is a very simplified view of the whole, but this gives an overview about it. So we have summary, novelty, background, etc. You know these. Now, again, to come back again to how the concept matching grammars are constituted. So what we need for them, we need lists of words that instantiate constituent concepts in the rhetorical patterns, like new and idea. And here you see a list of words which instantiate these. These are words whose meaning is related to this constituent concept. And then we need co-occurrence rules that match the sentences where the constituent concepts are syntactically related. So if the Stanford parser finds in a sentence a syntactic relationship dependency between new and idea, and there are some other conditions as well, then tag the sentence novelty. So this was your question, Ming, I think. And here you will have the sentence tagged. Now, again, we spoke about the architecture of the concept matching system for developing new concept matching systems. So the input is a text. It is sent to the Stanford parser. And the Stanford parser does some pre-treatment for us. It does the segmentation into sentences. It will indicate the part of speech tags and syntactic dependencies. And these are the elements of the Stanford parser that we will use. This output will have an XML form, but this XML form we will, as developers, we are not interested in because it is very complicated to look at. So Claude Roux in Etanor converted it into another structure which is much easier to read. And so in Etanor takes the XML input, it converts it into some other system, some other format, and then it assigns the concept features to lemmas. It selects sentences with the instantiated concept patterns. So it will produce the rhetorically salient sentence type tags. And it will also mark the instantiated concept patterns, which hasn't been implemented, I think, in the reflective parser, which will indicate to the students which words are exactly the ones that that trigger the tagging of the sentence. Now, the lexicon has this format. The lexicon is a list of words for which we assign the constituent concepts, which are as features. So this lexicon that you see in both grammars, the lexicons have been compiled manually, completely, but there should be some other way of enriching them. Maybe using some statistical ways of acquiring new words. But I think that the lexicon of the general analytical parser is quite complete because there are very rarely new words that can be added in general text. But in some new domains, we might need some new words, and these might be acquired by other means as well. I have to say that the features that you see in the lexicon are not all used in the grammar because this lexicon has been developed for various applications, and I converted it automatically for Etanor, and I didn't eliminate features that are not used. So it is a bit too much.
Agnes?
Yes.
Yeah, can I ask? So who defines these features? Like transparent?
Like what?
So like for example, ability. Like this lexicon is defined by so these are one features.
Yeah, transparent. Yes. Transparent. Who says this? Who defines these features? Yeah, it's the grammar developer. It is It is the person who develops the grammar and who sees the need for a feature. I will explain today what transparent is. Transparent is not a constituent concept, it is a grammatical feature. Because it is, you can have a sentence, the ability of something is important. The ability to see. I will show you an example.
So this is defined by the developer rather than.
It is defined by the developer. Yes.
Okay.
So there are constituent concepts when words that have the feature key search word KSW. These concepts are, these features are features for constituent concepts. There are other features which are not constituent concepts. For example, transparent. I will explain this. There are not very many of these. But here you see, for example, contrast, mental. Mental is related to idea, and it is increasing. Actually, this grammar has a history. Unfortunately for you, so the names are have been developed through history, and this is why, and they have changed. So today, what we have idea is mental, or scope is idea, what I call idea, and so on. So the words that you see here are the original names for these features, which have changed. When I wanted to explain the system, I found better names.
Okay, all right.
And we should say, you know, in the last tutorial, you were introducing us to the syntax of this file. Some people may have forgotten exactly how to parse, you know, the syntax of those lines that we're looking at. But I expect you're going to sort of re-explain the bits we need to understand in today's session anyway. But otherwise, if you know, people can review, I think, the last session 2, if they want to understand how this is being structured. But I guess you're going to recap a little bit today as well.
Well, I didn't mean to recap the lexicon, just this, but it is very straightforward, because today we are going to use the lexicon, but not constitute the lexicon. So the lexicon is just a list of words, and you assign the features to these words in this way, and you can have constraints for when you assign the feature to the word. For example, absurdity should be a noun, but it's always a noun when it is contrast or no unary or etc. For example, an interesting example is address, because address, when it is a verb, it is a publication verb. So in this article, we address something. In this case, it has the publication feature. And if it is a noun, it is mental. No, it is also a verb, sorry. No. Here, address is a keyword only if it is a verb. If it is a noun, it's not interesting for us. So this is why we say if it is a verb. And this part is the constraint on the word. And also, this lexicon is a lexicon of lemmas, meaning that these are the dictionary forms of the word. So whenever any word occurs in any form in the sentence, it will be, the feature will be added. So this is a very rapid recap on the lexicons. Now, the rule formalisms, a very quick reminder again, because we are going to go through the rules, and this will make you understand exactly how they are constituted, but it's really, really simple. So the rules are, the goal of the rules is to create or delete dependencies. We'll see how and why. to add features to lexical entries in order to group multiple features as a single feature. So I will explain this as well. And also to add or delete features to or from lexical entries depending on their context. Because in the lexicon, we assign features to lexical items, but it's not always lexical items, first of all, that need a feature, but that can be compound words as well. We'll see this today. And also some words get a feature depending on their meaning. For example, if you take the word develop, if you say I develop a system or develop a theory, develop is a keyword. But if you say I develop develop some muscles, for example, for something, it's not a keyword. And we need a way of differentiating between these. So the form of the rules is, first you have a constraint, which begins with if, and the constraint is in, or the condition is in parentheses. So if you have a dependency with a certain feature, and this dependency consists of arguments, argument 1 and argument 2, which has some feature and another feature, then add a feature to the dependency itself. So this is the result. This is the condition, and this is the result, the output of the rule. And also you can add a feature to one argument of the dependency in this way. So we either add a feature to a dependency or add a feature to the argument, or delete a feature, and for deleting we use the tilde, and for adding we use the plus. It is very straightforward, and we can also make operations within the condition. We will see it. We can say and most times we say and. And so one important thing is that the order of the rules counts, and because the rules are executed one after the other. So the last reminder slide is the grammar configuration. The grammar is configured in the analyze anarchiv file, which is basically the list of all the files in the order of their execution that are used in the grammar. So there are dependency files. In the analytical grammar, there are 4 dependency files, and there are lexicon files. Well, there can be several lexicon files as well. Here we've got one, and here the order is irrelevant. And also you have feature files. It is where you declare the features that you will use. So in this configuration file, you can add as many files as you like, and it's always better to keep the system modular, keep the original files. Hopefully, there is no need to intervene in these files, except if you find something that you need to add in between somewhere. But otherwise, it's better to always to start a new file when you make a new system. And in this case, it will stay modular, and the old files will be good for use later as well. And so the order of the dependency file counts since the rules are executed incrementally. And so now we will review the contents and the formalisms of all these files. Only the dependency files today. Because, the lexicon files we are not going to overview unless you want a session, especially on the constitution of the lexicon files, and the feature files are very straightforward. So we are going to walk over the analytical grammar files. there are 4 files, and 3 of them are there for preparing the co-occurrence rules. In the preparation, so first we prepare the terrain for the co-occurrence rules. So we need to make sure that the words instantiating the rhetorical concepts are syntactically related. And this is done in the new dependency skiff file. So if we need some new dependencies, so the Stanford parser puts out some dependencies. And if these dependencies are not enough, we need to create new ones. We'll see how, and this is done in the new dependency skiff. And then we also have to make sure that in the sentences that we need to capture, there are the necessary concept features. And if it is not the case, we need to add features, the contextual features, in the add features ana-o-kif and the add feature ana-kif. The difference is that so the ana-o-kif is also used in the rhetorical parser, and the second one is only used in the analytical parser. And then we have the concept matching rules, which are in the dependency ana-kif. So we'll go through each file. I mean, we are not going to go through each rule, but I have selected some rules which illustrate the role of these rules in the grammar. So the first one is the new dependency skiff. It is a common file for the reflective and the analytical parser, and it makes shortcuts to link arguments from 2 Stanford parser dependencies. Whenever such a new dependency is created, I gave a feature to the dependency so that you can see that this dependency doesn't come from the Stanford parser, but it comes from the analytical or the reflective parser. So whenever you see grammar reflective grref or grana, you see that this grref was created for the reflective parser and grana for the analytical parser. And it might be the case that there is a problem with these rules, so you need to modify them. But it's important for you to know that all the other dependencies that are in the there are the outcomes of the Stanford parser. So if we create a new dependency, it can be either an existing dependency type, or but it doesn't matter. The dependency type is very rarely important in these grammars. So if you just write dep dependency, it's fine as well. Now we move to the examples. In the slides that you see, they are copy-paste from the original file. The 2 slashes mean that this is a comment. And usually when I write a new rule, and I advise this to you as well, to comment, to write a sentence in the comment that is the basis for your rule. Unfortunately, in most of the cases in the analytical parser, there are no such sentences because the development of the parser goes back to a long time, and I didn't follow this practice, unfortunately, before, and I couldn't. I didn't have the time to illustrate every rule with a sentence, but ideally every rule should be illustrated by a sentence. And also, well, we'll come back to this later, not in this course, that for developing a grammar, you need to constitute a corpus on which you can test the validity of the rules. This rule in the new dependency file is in order to link two words in these sentences. So in the sentence we have a sequence which is important ethical questions. You see, important is a keyword, ethical is not a keyword, and questions is a keyword. So you would like to link a contrast to importance. You would like to have important questions. And semantically, really, it raises important questions. This is the semantics of the of this sentence. However, the Stanford parser, it is not an error or a problem with the Stanford parser. It is a way it works. So you need to know how it works. In the Stanford parser, a dependency is created between important ethical and ethical questions. It raises important ethical and wider philosophical questions. But there is no link between important and questions. But we can make a link between these two. So we say that if there is an A mod, this is an adjective modifier relationship between two arguments, like here the ethical and important. So this is argument 1, this is argument 2. And if you have another A mod dependency where you have a relationship between a third argument and the first argument of the first A mod, then create a new A mod dependency, because important and questions, important is a modifier of questions. So we create a new A mod dependency, which will have the feature grammar because it was created for the analytical grammar, and this dependency should contain as arguments questions and important. Questions is the argument that we noted with number 3, and important is number 2. Is this clear for you? So
what's the purpose of this? Can you give us example?
Pardon?
What's the purpose of you define the new dependencies?
It is in order for me to be able to know that important and questions are related semantically, because I want to grasp this sentence that there are important questions. This is a rhetorical move. This sentence conveys an important rhetorical move, a conventional rhetorical move, when there research problem or is presented as a new idea, a contrasting idea is presented. Contrasting idea is some important research question, right? Mm. An important research question underlies the idea that there is some contrast, there is some problem that is going to be mentioned here. It is a conventional term to say that it raises important questions. I want to grasp it, but I cannot grasp it if I don't know that important and questions are related.
Okay.
You see? Is it clear?
Yeah, okay, I see. Yeah.
So and the parser doesn't relate it. The parser relates important to ethical and ethical to questions, but not important to questions.
That's right.
But important is in fact related to question, but the parser has made choices what relationship to establish.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And just to clarify, this is one of the examples you're giving us on the kind of dependencies which are added by Athanor. Are there like other rules similar to these which will add?
Exactly. These rules, so in the dependency a new dependency file, you only have such rules. I mean, not exactly like this one, but this is, I took one example of each rule with a function to show you how these rules work or how they could be added.
Okay, cool, thanks.
There are many rules, not so many, but there are many, and you can add new ones if you discover new indirect dependencies that you need in the grammar.
Okay, cool.
Is it fine? Do you,
Yeah.
is the formalism of the rule clear for you?
Yeah, it's clear. Yeah.
Yeah, it's straightforward. So you have the dependency type, you have its arguments, which are variables, which you number, and then you refer to them.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was one new dependency that we created. And now the next new dependency that that I show you is exactly the transparent words that Ming asked about. So here we have a sentence which says it requires forms of knowledge. So we would like to link require and knowledge, and because it. But the grammar, we need to have require is a contrast word and knowledge is an idea word, and we need to link them in order to be able to detect this sentence. But here the sentence says require different forms of knowledge, but the real relationship is between knowledge and require. Forms of is a kind of modifying knowledge. And there are several other words like form of, which behave in the same way, like type, class, kind of knowledge, sort of knowledge, variety of knowledge, etc. There can be other words that could be put here, which are not important for the analysis of the sentence. We need the link between the thing of which it is a form or of which it is a type. So we have a list of words like this in the lexicon. We say that they are transparent. I call it transparent because they don't count, but they are the words with which the syntactic relationships are established. So in the Stanford parser, there is a relationship between require and form, and not require and knowledge. But there is also a relationship between form and knowledge, and between of and knowledge. These are the existing relationships. So I say that if there is this relationship, direct object relationship between a verb, this should be a verb, and a transparent noun. So that is the second argument has the features noun and transparent. And what's more, I have a modifier relationship between forms and knowledge, and a case relationship between knowledge and of. And here I refer to of with its lemma. And this here, this is not necessary anymore. Claude said that for some technical reasons, I should add this whenever there is there are ands in the condition, but it turns out that it is not very important. Then I create a new direct object relationship. I call it normalizing because I normalize this relationship. I say require knowledge, which is the underlying relationship, normalized relationship, and it is also part of the analytical grammar. And so I establish the relationship between require and knowledge. Is this clear? Okay. So these were, yes, and at the end of this dependency grammar, sometimes there might be duplicates. So there might be dependencies that are created twice. I don't need them. So I say if I have any relationship, if twice, this is the general variable of one relationship, another relationship. If I have twice the same relationship, then I eliminate one of the relationships. The one that I eliminate, I indicate with this sign. Okay, so these were the illustrations for the new dependencies file. Now we move on to the add feature files. There are two of them, as I said. For all is for includes the rhetorical grammar, and because the rhetorical grammar has some there is some intersection between the features of the analytical grammar and the reflective grammar, and the add feature anarchiv is only for the analytical grammar. Yes. The role of these rules is either to add or delete analytical concept features depending on the context of the words, which we call disambiguation with disambiguate words, add or delete analytical concept features to or from compound words, and group features that are often used together as one overall feature. I will illustrate each of these cases by one rule. So for the disambiguation, actually I think I have two for, I don't remember, for the disambiguation. So as I said, for example, develop a theory and develop muscles. The two develops are not both are not important for us. Develop a theory is important, but develop muscles is not important. So it is the disambiguation is important because being a keyword is not only important if you have with respect to one word in the sentence, but it can be other words. So you could have in a sentence develop muscles, other words, other keywords that are related to this develop, but we don't want them to constitute important dependencies. And in the lexicon entry, thus, there is develop, which has the mental feature. Mental is one of the, so we call this idea, and it is a key search word. Well, this no grow, it doesn't have any importance in the current grammar. It is there, but it's not used. So if you want to, one day you want to clean it, you can erase all the features that are not needed. But it also has a feature which is with scope. This means with scope. So this indicates that there should be rules that say that develop is a key sentence word only if it is in a relationship with a word that is a scope word, and theory is a scope word. So now I will show you the rule that uses this feature. And there is a list of words that has the feature with scope. So if you discover that there are several words in the same case, you can list them in the lexicon and then add a feature to them and then use this feature for rules. And so this rule does not only apply for develop, but for a lot of other words which have this feature with scope, which only are keywords if they are in relationship with a scope word. So the way I do it, there are different other ways of doing it, is I say that if you have a rule, a dependency in which there is a word which has a with scope feature and a word which have the scope feature, then I say this is okay. The dependencies, the arguments can be in any order. So the order of the argument counts. So it is exactly the order in which the parser outputs the arguments. So I say if the words are in relationship with a scope word, then it is okay. But if it is, if I have a word sin, refers to a dependency which represents a single lemma. So sin is for a lemma. So if I have a lemma which has both the features with scope and does not have an okay feature, then I delete all the possible rhetorical key sentence word features that they can have. I delete all these features for them, and they will not be key search words. They will be not attitude or any of the key sentence word features. They will not have. If they have a with scope feature and they are not okay, and then if I have a lemma which has both with scope and okay, then I don't need okay anymore. I need to erase okay. I don't want okay. So this is the way I wrote rules to disambiguate between these two uses of develop. Is this clear? Okay. Now another example of disambiguation. This is a little bit different. It is lexical. We can have this article shows, we show, but these plants show are not important. In this meaning, show is not a mental is not a keyword for us, because it is an object that shows something. It is not an idea that shows something. So in the lexical entry, we have show, which is a word, a mental, and publication. Pub is a feature that will be used for the summary sentences, because not all mental words can indicate publication, but show, this is used with article show, what we show, or this table shows, etc. And this is this publication feature. And this feature is, these features are assigned to show only when they are verbs. So we don't want the features to be assigned to the show was great, for example, when it is a noun, and neither when it is in the past. We showed, because it is not usually it is not a general publication. It is not used generally, I think, but maybe there is another rule for this. I don't remember. But anyway, this lexicon entry has been defined like this. Now, we want to say that show is only a publication word if it is related to another publication word like article, or if it is related to a word that is deictic like we. So here we have two conditions. Now the way it is done, actually you see the grammar is not use of notations, because here I said keep instead of okay, but it is, the keep is the same. It could be okay as well, because every time I erase this feature at the end of the rules, I don't, it doesn't intervene anymore. These are assisting features, which assist in constructing the rules. So I say, if I have the lemma, this rule is only valid for the lemma show. Maybe there are other words for which it could be valid, and if I find several of these words, then I can put them into the lexicon and give them a feature, and write the rules for the features, not for the lemma. So if the lemma show is related to public or dict in any order, then I assign the feature keep. And if lemma show doesn't have the feature keep, it won't be publication. And finally, if it won't be publication. If it does, of course, it will be publication. And in the end, I delete the feature keep. So these were two disambiguation rules. Here, I show an example of how compound words are assigned features. Here is a sentence in which we have authors make clear that we also have to keep an eye, etc. So we want to capture authors make clear. Make clear, basically, it means the same as clarify. Here, the Stanford parser makes a compound dependency between make and clear, and this is what I will use. In the lexicon, I have an entry for clarify, which is mental, both mental and contrast, because to clarify something underlies that something was not clear before. Clarify is both contrast and mental. So I add to the lexicon clear with the feature with negative and mental. It is a word that actually I don't use this here in the, sorry, oh yes, no, I will use this, sorry. So what I do here is to take the compound word make clear, and I add the feature mental and contrast to make, and clear will be thus clear, which will need with negative mental, will, by another rule, I should have shown you this rule as well, will get key sentence word feature in the grammar. So by giving make, by assigning make the features mental and contrast, I make clear able to take it in a relationship. Because exactly the meaning of make, actually to explain it in a more intuitive way, because it might be maybe a little bit confusing for you, is the clarify, is the if I make it clear, this make conveys the contrast meaning, the contrasting idea meaning in it. So I assign this feature to make if it is in a relationship with clear, if it is a compound relationship with clear, make clear. I don't know if it is clear for you. Is it fine?
Yeah, from my understanding, so basically you just change the make to have a special features.
Yeah.
To have if you detect if they match the X compound and the mix, which makes make have a special feature.
Exactly.
Which
exactly.
is similar to clarify.
Yes, yes, exactly. Because exactly the compound word make clear, it means clarify. So make clear, this unit make clear should have the same features as clarify.
Yeah.
And this is the way technically it can be done. That I give make the same features as clarify.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So compound words. And now there are also rules that group features, which are usually used together. For example, mental and scope and publication, these are what I call together idea, which are words which are related to ideas. And so if something is mental and scope, it is called mensco. So it means that whenever it's indifferent if it is mental or scope, I can write mensco. It is not always indifferent, but a lot of times it's indifferent. So the rule will use the feature mensco, which means either mental or scope. It can also be mensco pub, which is either mental or scope or publication. There are other cases where I want to use the feature mental or contrast, etc. So I can group features together if it is necessary. And especially this mensco, it's used a lot of times. It is the idea feature. Now we go to the main part. Well, until now, we have seen how we prepare the Stanford parser output for the co-occurrence rules. Actually, the co-occurrence rules are not very complicated or not very long as everything is very well prepared. The preparation is very important because the dependencies need to be there, and the concept features need to be there. Once they are there, then we need to see in which cases, which constellations of the dependencies with the constituent concepts should be tagged as the rhetorical sentence types. So I'm going to show now how the sentences are tagged with the rhetorically salient concept patterns. There are basically 3 steps. The most complex is what we call the impsent. So the impsent is all the analytical moves, which are the contrasting ideas, the background knowledge, open question, etc. So these we call important sentences. And the second is when we tag the summary sentences, like in this article we say. And then the third one is really very straightforward because there are some sentences which are both important and summary. But this is a mechanical step. So the most complex one is marking the important sentences. So the way I have done it is by beginning very large, by creating a very feature of dependencies, or I mean a new dependency, which is the key sentence word dependency. It is a dependency where both arguments have constituent concept features, any features. So if there is a dependency that has a contrast and mental, or mental and mental, or mental and scope or emphasis, anything, it will be a key sentence word dependency. But this is something very large. And the whole grammar consists of filtering this and specifying this. So then we eliminate irrelevant key sentence word dependencies, and then tagging the key sentence word dependencies with the constituent concept features of its arguments. So we say that this key sentence word dependency, its arguments are contrast and mental. So these features are going to be added to the dependency itself, because it is the dependency, the type of the dependency, that is the basis of the patterns. And then we create the important sentence dependency, which is based on the key sentence word dependency feature patterns. And then we tag these important sentences with the salient sentence types based on the dependency features. We'll go through these. And in the summary sentences, it is basically the same, but there is just so it is not key sentence word dependency. I call it contribution dependency. Is the contribution dependency is the dependency that is the basis of the summary sentence. And then we create the summary summary dependency based on contribution, meaning that if a sentence has a contribution dependency, then it's a summary sentence. And then if a sentence has both important sentence and is both important and summary, then it is in summary. So let's start. Is it okay with you? Are you not lost? It's a lot of things. Now, so again, we are going to go through the the way the rhetorical sentence tags are assigned to the sentences. So the basic dependency is the key sentence word dependency. So we create this dependency. If the Stanford parser outputs a dependency in which both words have the key search word feature from the lexicon or from the add feature files, which these files are before this file, this dependency file, then let's create a key search word dependency. And from now on, we only deal with these dependencies. But not all of these are relevant. For example, if you have a file like to describe and explain the outcome of a state, etc., we are not interested in describe and explain, because this is a coordination. Sorry, skipped this one. So describe and explain. We don't want this to intervene in a pattern as an important dependency, because it is as if they're to describe the outcome of the state, etc., is the same thing as to explain. We don't want this dependency to be important. We want describe to be a keyword and explain to be a keyword, but a conjunction between two similar keywords is not important, because it is really one thing. What is important for us is the relationships of these words with another word in the sentence. We want these. We don't want this relationship. We'll see the importance of this later, because the number of dependencies is important. I think this will be clearer when we later why we don't need this. So we don't need this because it's irrelevant that there are two words. The two words have the same role in the sentence. we describe the outcome and explain the outcome. But describe and explain is not interesting. So we say if there is a conjunction, and this conjunction is a key search word because both words are key search words, then we don't need this. And also adverbial clauses are not important. And I don't have an example for this, unfortunately. I should have looked for an example for you. I'm sorry, I realize now that this is not clear for you. But and I don't know exactly now why I did this. So this is why we really need examples. But anyway, this rule is in the grammar. If one day you find that this is not a good rule, then you can comment it. But I showed this to show that. So first I create a very general dependency, and then I filter it. So the next step is to mark these dependencies with the features of its arguments. So if there is a key search word dependency whose one argument is a contrast, then the dependency will get the feature contrast. And if it has mental, then it will have the dependency mental and plus mensco and mensco pub, because these include mental. And this is important to have this, the dependencies tagged, because it is these features which will be the basis of the patterns for the important sentences. So this is the next step, marking the key search word dependencies. And then this is an important step, and this is maybe where you understand why the conjunction is not an important dependency. So if you look at the question, the students ask a question. In this sentence, you have two keywords, ask and question, which are both keywords. You have a key search word dependency of ask and question. And ask is a contrast, and question is also contrast and mental as well, I think. I don't remember. Ask is maybe, I don't remember the feature, but anyway, this dependency has the feature contrast and mental, which is a very important dependency for contrasting ideas. However, the students ask a question does not convey a contrasting idea. It is not a rhetorically salient sentence, but it does have a key sentence dependency. So the way this thing is filtered out is to add a constraint that ask and question are important only if there are other key search word dependencies in the sentence. So if there are not, and how do I attain it? It is, I say that if there is only ask and question in a sentence, then this dependency is weak. And the way this weak is created, I will show in the next slide. So there are dependencies, key search word dependencies, which are weak, meaning that in themselves, they are not enough for making up rhetorically salient sentences. However, if you look at the sentence, the paper asks the question if the theory is true. I created these sentences for illustrating this to you. So here, the paper asks the questions if the theory is true. Here we have three key search word dependencies, and the three are weak for some reason, which I show you in the next slide. Ask question and true theory and asks paper. If these were alone in the sentence would not be tagged. But if there are 3 of them or 2 of them, it is tagged. So if it is, so this is a question of probability a little bit. I say if there are other important relationships in the sentence, then it is more probable that the sentence is important. If there is just one weak, then not. Is it clear?
Yeah, but
yes.
I'm also wondering that if it would filter out some other sentences which might have only 2 key dependencies, and for example, they're not using the word, the noun paper, because it's been already said in the previous sentence, and then they're saying it asks a question or something like that, then I think that will not be taken as a key.
Well, this is completely true. This is one of the limits of this system, that it doesn't have any co-reference resolution.
Right.
So this is a way for, this is really a way to improve, to do co-reference resolution, because the paper was mentioned in the previous sentence, and the grammar does not recognize this. It does not recognize it.
Right. Okay.
It is clearly a limitation. Yes, exactly. It was a very relevant question and very true. Yeah, that's right.
Thanks.
Now I must add that so the rules that are here is the way the grammar uses this weak feature. It says if here I introduced weak. I explained to you what weak means. So weak can also be a feature of a word, and then I use the feature, for example, ask and question. I added this feature to a word when the word is used often used in not in rhetorically salient sentences, not in move sentences. For example, ask is a very general word. It is very, very often used. So, but for example, analyze or we suggest and things like that are much less, are much more frequent in these sentences and much less used usually in articles, in other senses. But all this is a question of domain and consideration. So these features, for example, the weak feature, it was really manually added. And I think there should be ways to add these features in ways which is more dependent on the corpora or on really important statistical considerations that I haven't executed. So this feature was added gradually as needed. So a dependency is weak if one of its features one of its arguments has the feature weak, or if it is a certain type of dependency. I'm not going to list all these. For example, I'm not going to list them because you don't understand all of them. But for example, I can say that, for example, contrast and importance. If there is, for example, not important, something is not important. It is also something very general. So I say it's weak. It should only count when it's not important, is in a sentence when there are other key sentence verb dependencies. Otherwise, it will not be important for the patterns, right? It's too general. So weak is something that is general. It can be either a word or a dependency between words. Now, when do I create important sentence? So this important sentence takes into account both the fact if the dependency is weak, and the features that are in these dependencies. So this line means that if there is a sentence in which there are two key search word dependencies, both of them are weak, and one of them is contrast, and this D root is the dependency, is a dependency that has been created for the whole sentence. So this D root, this argument is the whole sentence itself. So I say, if there is a sentence which has two weak dependencies, one of which is contrast, and contrast is very important, then this is an important sentence. Or one of them is emphasis, one of them is time, fact, attitude, groove, surprise. Or because I'm not going to explain this more now because it might be confusing for you, but once you have digested it, I can explain to you why exactly this is here. Or if there is a sentence in which there is a not weak dependency and another dependency, and another key search word dependency, it is also an important sentence. Or it has a not weak dependency of which neither of the two arguments is weak. So this is also an important sentence. So here is the place where the important sentences are created. So here at this point, the important sentences are not tagged. It is this dependency is attached to sentences which have specific dependencies and weak or not weak dependencies in general. It is a general attitude to important sentences. And then so here is the final concept matching, where this series of rules is approximately what you saw in the second file, where you have the configurations of concepts that make up the salient sentence types. So if you have an important sentence, remember here we created the important sentences, and in this important sentence you have a contrast relationship, then it is a very important sentence and it is contrast. So this is the rule for making the contrasting ideas type. Then if you have either mental or scope or publication with time, like previous research has shown, then it is, this is called in the grammar tempstat, which is the background knowledge. Also, when it is, you have a relationship with ment scope up, which is idea. So this is idea and time, or time and idea. This is background knowledge. If you have old, which is another concept, and if you have a relationship with old, then it is old, which is also background knowledge. I'm not going to go through it because you are not going to understand it right now, but of these details. But for example, you have a novelty, then it is a novelty sentence. Grow sentence is grow, emphasis is emphasis, and etc. So these are the rules that make up the types: the attitude, surprise, background knowledge, no stat, this is the open question, etc. So everything goes up to this. This is the final concept matching. And so up to now, we have seen the important sentences. Now we see the contribution dependent, the summary sentences, which is much easier and more straightforward. So it depends on the contribution feature. If a sentence has both publication and dict, like this article, or a publication part is a chapter, this chapter, then this will be marked contribution. And so we add the contribution feature to dependencies, and whenever a sentence has okay, so this was one way. So publication and date, this article is a contribution dependency, but there are some special cases as well. For example, the aim of the article. The aim of the article, actually this expression is ambiguous. We don't know if it is the current article or if it is another article. If it is the aim of our article, well, it is clear that it is the current article, or the aim of this article. It is not always the case that it is the current article, but mostly it is the case. But the aim of the article is very ambiguous between we are speaking of the current article or the author refers to another article. So in this case, we add the feature any author. So if you have the feature any author with a summary sentence, it means that we don't know if the summary is the summary of the author's article or of the of any other article referred to. So here, this rule will capture the expression the aim of the article. And here we need the definite article as a dependency. We need that the aim of the article. If it is the aim of an article, this dependency will not be marked as contribution. Or another special expression is, for example, it is concluded that there is. So it is concluded, it is very specific. It doesn't match the basic deictic and publication pattern. So I made, so this is a very specific rule which will capture it is concluded. Only this only structure, which is in the Stanford parser, it is it and concluded are in a subject, a passive subject relationship. It is the passive subject of concluded. So I say if there is a passive subject relationship between it and conclude, then this is contribution relationship. There are not very many very specific rules like this, but there are some. Now we create the summary sentence. So anytime when we find a contribution relationship, then we mark the sentence summary. So this is really very straightforward. So you have a contribution dependency and there is the sentence. So the sentence is assigned the contribution dependency. And if it is any author, then the summary sentence will be any author. So you will have this feature with the summary sentence. And finally, if a sentence is both important sentence and summary sentence, it will be an imp summary sentence. And then we need to So here there is an important thing to know, that if you create a new dependent, so if this sign means that you change this dependency into another dependency. If this sign were not here, then a new dependency, imp summary, would be created, and both imp send and summary would remain. But in this case, in this rule, imp send will be replaced by imp summary. So after this rule, we'll have an imp summary and a summary sentence. The imp send will be transformed into imp summary, and we want it to be contribution, because every summary sentence has, again, historically, this feature contribution. But then we need to add, or if we need to add all the features of summary to imp summary so that it has these features. So the new dependency, the imp summary, will inherit all the features for imp send. It will be, so imp send will be transformed into imp summary with any of its features, but it will not take, of course, the features of summary. So we need to add these features. If summary had the feature any author, then the imp summary needs to inherit it. We need to add it. But then the summary is not necessary anymore, so we delete it. And I don't remember if there is a summary. I don't understand this rule right now. If I have a summary sentence and there is no imp summary, it is a very special rule. I am not going to explain it. I shouldn't have put it, but anyway. So this is how imp summary is created. So you couldn't understand the whole grammar now from this, but you had some examples for each type of rule, and I showed you the functions of the rule. And the very, very last rule is marking keywords, which is if you have an important sentence and you have in it a key sentence word dependency, then both arguments of the dependency should get the feature meta discourse, and these are the meta discourse words. So it means that every word that constitutes the important sentence gets a special feature. So these words only get the features if they are in key search word dependencies. Show will not get a meta discourse feature or even suggest if it is not in an important sentence. Or also if at an imp summary, it's not here. So this feature allows to put in bold or to mark in any way the keywords in the sentences. This is the very, very last rule. So this is it. I think it was a little bit fast, and I don't know if it was possible for you to follow it exactly, or if it is clear for you the constitution of the rules.
Okay, thank you, Agnes. Really appreciate you putting this material together. I mean, it is quite complex, but what we have now is something we can refer to and follow up with you if we need further clarification.
Yeah.
But you know, it's good to have this sort of there now as a library resource. Shabani and Ming, Sophie, did you want to ask for any clarifications at the moment?
I'm just wondering, so this is all about analytical writing. So how about reflective writing?
Well, basically, the method is the same, but the constituent concepts and the rules are very, very different. The moves are different. So if you want, I can put up a similar thing for the reflective writing. But the basic idea is the same. So the very, very first thing is to establish the patterns. And the patterns have been established based on the work that Adam and Andrew have done for identifying the important moves in reflective writing. So the moves are established by some specialists. We establish first the moves. What are, so the categories that you have in the reflective system, like what were these? Context and change and
context, challenge, change,
and future challenge or something.
Yeah.
So these were established based on the literature by Andrew and Adam, and I also contributed a little bit. So we did this together, but the idea came basically from the literature. So, and then what I did was to find the underlying concepts. We found some sentences first, sentences that were singled out by the tutors, like important sentences. And then I tried to find the relevant patterns behind these sentences, and I created the constituent concepts. And then I wrote the grammar, but the grammar writing technique and approach is the same as in the analytical grammar. So there is a lexicon of the words which have the constituent concepts. So some of these, the main constituent concepts have been taken over from the analytical grammar, but there are some new ones, and so there are some new concepts that are instantiated in a grammatical way, not so much as a lexicon. So this needs maybe some more explanation. And then the constitution of the concept matching rules is basically the same. So we make sure that there are the relevant relationships, then the relevant features are there, and then there are the co-occurrence rules. So
well, I mean, I guess one of the best ways of getting to grips with this, Ming, is going to be to have a go at starting to express some grammars for the reflective writing, and that's how we'll figure it out, or to modify it.
Yeah. Well, yes. Well, I think the best way is really to look at some sentences which have been marked and see why. And actually, this is the next thing that was proposed for this, that I proposed for this training, to look at sentences and see why they are marked, if it is correct, if it is not correct, what to do.
Another thing is, I'm wondering, so if I found some new keywords or new grammars, so new lexicons and or features, if I add it there, do I need to compile it? Or I just add it and it can automatically, yeah.
It has to be in the format. You have to convert it into this the format of Athanor, and then you can add it.
So that was in an earlier tutorial.
Any new lexicon, any new thing. You can add anything new, new lexicons, new features, new rules, everything,
yeah,
which are in this format.
Yeah. And do I need to compile it, or I just simply add it and it can automatically?
You don't need anything to compile. You just add it. It is. So the grammar is a list of files,
yeah,
text files basically.
Yeah.
Which need to be there in the configuration file.
Yeah.
And
And there was an earlier tutorial which talked about expanding the lexicon.
Pardon?
There was
yes, there is one. There are slides about expanding the lexicon.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure very much about the implementation part. Like, I think it's better to run a local copy of it. So if there is a C++ version of it, can we do a standalone one in our desktop versions? So
of course. Well, this is the way I work. Okay. I work locally. And then when there is a stable system, then I commit it. But in order to commit things, you need to test it. So in order to intervene in the grammars, you do need a development corpus and also a test corpus to check if your changes are correct or not.
Right.
Because it is a very much experimental thing. You cannot foresee the meaning of words in the corpora that you use.
Yeah. So if we need any help with setting up the local development version, then we'll get in touch.
Yeah. But it is really no problem. You just copy the files on your computer, or all the files. Well, actually, I don't have one on my laptop either. This is why I don't show you now interactively. I thought that it will be more interactive online when I be with you, and then if we make some exercises together. Actually, if you want, well, we don't have a lot of time. I put some exercises in the previous one, and I have slides about the exercises. So here in the exercises and solutions, there are the 3 exercises, and I show the output files that were asked in the exercises. So you can go through it, or if you think we can go through, but maybe you are completely saturated now, or we can do it next time as well. These are some practical exercises with the systems, very basic, just to get acquainted with using the system.
Well, while we're still just recording this, I think it would be nice to just briefly just step through those, just to include them in this recording if people are able to stay on. I mean, I will stay on anyway, but just you can just introduce them so that it's part of the recording.
Okay. So there were 3 exercises. The first exercise. The aim of the first exercise was just to get acquainted with running the parser and seeing pun. You have a question, Shibani? No. So running pun.
No, we don't have. Just we just.
Okay. So the aim here is to run the Stanford parser and to see what difference the Athener makes with respect to the Stanford parser. So here you have 3 sentences. I asked you to run it in the Stanford parser, and so first on the Stanford parser, because the way I have it installed on my machine, everything goes in 2 steps. First, I have to run the Stanford parser, and then I run Athener on top of on the output of the Stanford parser. So I have these to do these 2 operations. So first, run this on the Stanford parser, and then the output will be the output of the Stanford parser. But then if I want to see this output, not in an XML format, because the Stanford parser output is XML, but Athener transforms it into a more readable format, then in order to get the plain Stanford parser output, you can comment all the Atenor rules with the 2 slashes, and then you run analyze ANA-KIF on the Stanford parser output, and you get a res file, which is a result file. I call it result. So here, this file is the output of the Stanford parser alone. Here you have the sentence so this is the output of the Stanford parser with the Atenor format, which the Atenor format is in one line, you have one dependency. And the main dependency is the rule dependency, which is the dependency for the whole sentence. This is important because it is to this dependency that we assign the rhetorical concept dependencies. So here, this sentence, these new insights provide direct evidence, etc., have these dependencies from the Stanford parser in the Atenor format. And the format is always dependency and the arguments of the dependency. So here you see this sentence has the sentence dependency. You are not at all interested in all these other D underscore things. And these are the syntactic dependencies within the sentence, like for involvement is a case, a modifier is new insight, etc. But you see, this is the raw Stanford parser dependency without Atenor, because we commented the Atenor rules. So next, the task was to uncomment the lexicon and the dependency rules in analyze-KIF and run Atenor again. And then you will have another file which will have the Atenor rules implemented. And here you will see that the same sentence will be tagged as important sentence, and it will be a novelty sentence because it has these key search word dependencies, which we saw today, how they were created. So if you look at these two files now, which you have, you will, if you put them side by side, you will see what Atenor does with the raw Stanford parser output, right? So this was the first exercise. It was a very basic exercise. The aim was for you to see what Atenor does and to observe what the output looks like. The second exercise was to see exactly your question, Ming, what to do if you want to insert a new word. If you create an input file with the two sentences, the current theory is insufficient and the current theory is faulty. So let's say you have these two sentences, then you will have, and you run these two sentences, first on the Stanford parser and then on Atenor, you will get a file in which the current theory is insufficient is an important sentence, but the current theory is faulty is not an important sentence. But this is not right because faulty and insufficient are both contrast words. But faulty is not in the lexicon, is not in the current lexicon that you have. So now, what you see here, you see that the key search word dependency is insufficient theory. But here you also have faulty theory. Faulty theory as the same kind of, is this the same kind of? Yeah, what kind of relationship? Yeah, the same kind of relationship. The current, yes, of course, the current theory is faulty. You have this relationship, but you don't have it as an important sentence because faulty doesn't have doesn't have any important features. Here you can check that that insufficient has features because all the lines, the dependencies with sin are the lemmas, and here you have lemma for insufficient. You have insufficient has all these features, contrast, and key search features. So here in this line, in the output, you have the lemma with all its features, including the rhetorical features. But faulty doesn't have this feature. So what you need to do is to add faulty in the lexicon with the exact same features as insufficient. You add it, and if you run Attenor again, then you will have the current theory is faulty as an important sentence in the same way as the current theory is insufficient, right? So this is, you add a word. The third exercise is more complicated. So here we had a sentence, and I think this sentence was provided by you, Shibani, in a file that you sent, that you would have expected that this sentence is, sorry, what happened? That this sentence should be, I just wanted to draw you, is an important sentence, and it wasn't tagged. So part 3 will examine the role of video conferences in, I don't see it, in breaking down traditional social barriers. So we want to grasp part 3 will examine. But it is not an important sentence. This sentence should be tagged as summary, but the current system does not detect it. It's not a summary sentence, although it has a key search word dependency, but it is weak. It is examine the role, but this is not enough. Examine the role is not enough for the system. So what identify the words that instantiate the constituent concepts of summary in this sentence? So it is part 3. So we need to make sure that part 3 is taken into consideration. So and for this I added a rule which how I made it. I take the sentence, this sentence, part 3 will examine the role, etc., and see what is the important dependency. It is part 3. We will need to capture part 3. And part 3 in the Stanford parser is a numerical modifier. So I say, if in the Stanford parser, there is a numerical modifier whose lemma is part. Now, this is very tricky. Actually, I think this exercise was a little bit difficult for you at this point, because here, the Stanford parser output is not correct, because part is tagged as a proper noun. So it is not tagged as the word part. It is a proper noun. And so its lemma is a proper noun. It should be a common noun, and it should be, the lemma should be with a small p. But here in the output, it is a big P. So I needed to put it like this, because otherwise the rule wouldn't work. And actually, I should have written another rule where the lemma is part with a small p, because maybe in another sentence it will be the role of the video conferences, etc., is examined in part 3. In this case, part 3 wouldn't be at the beginning of the sentence, and part wouldn't be tagged as a proper noun. But this is something to, so this is why you need to know how the Stanford parser works and how to interpret the output. It is not difficult to obtain because it is very intuitive, but you need some practice for it. So I saw that part is the lemma. So whenever I have a part as a lemma, then this then the first, then this part will get the feature publication, and 3, which is the second argument of this dependency, will get the deictic argument, because it is in this case a deictic. So in this case, we will have a dependency in which part 3 will be a dependency that qualifies for contribution. And so if I write this rule, then I don't need to do anything else. So you see, it is a preparation rule. I make sure that the sentence, the words, the important words in the sentence have the important features. So if I add just this line, the following rules will be executed in a way that this is taken as a summary, as a contribution sentence, in which we will have examine role and part examine, and part will examine, part 3 will examine. So it will have the necessary dependencies and necessary features in order for the sentence to be selected. So this rule, for example, I implemented locally here. It is not, I haven't committed, I don't intervene with the grammar anymore. Well, I mean, with the one that has been committed and that is in the GitHub. Okay.
Okay, that's great. I think it's really helpful to have you step through those exercises, actually. Okay. Well, you've been working very hard, Agnes, and we appreciate that. Any final comments?
You too. Thank you.
Any final comments from the team?
Thanks, Agnes. I thought it's very helpful for us. I was actually wondering if we have the list of the keyword dependencies or publications or ideas, like what are the main categories? Like say for an idea, we have publication and a few of the subcategories, or the features. Like what are the features defined? Like can we get what those are somewhere?
Yeah, well, these you can see all of this in the grammar. Actually, by reading the grammar, there is no description of it other than the grammar itself. As the rules follow one another, you see it. There is no systematic description of it, because the systematic description, it is basically the second slide. And then there are some special cases which are taken, which are listed in the grammar. It is a list.
It's what maybe
is it clear?
Ourselves. It's probably good for us creating something that can be shared with others as well, like a wiki which we can add on to as we go through these grammar files and identify these features. Because that would
I wonder how, because there could be a systematic description of all the features. I don't have this right now, of all the features and all the way these features are used in the grammar. The best description is the grammar itself. I mean, the only that exists right now.
Right.
The grammar itself is this, but it is structured in a way. It is structured. It says now it is the contrast sentences that will be marked. So in the rules that describe what the contrast sentences are, these are the patterns. But would you like me to go deeper into the into the patterns and make a presentation like this more detailed?
Yeah, I think
Would that be helpful?
Yeah,
yeah,
that
I
would
think
be
that would
great.
be helpful. Great.
Well, that might be a next step if it is if you think it's useful. I mean, a next training session can be this.
Yeah, I mean, whatever we find most useful, I think we could give Agnes some guidance on what we would find most helpful. And, you know, I think experience shows that we really only learn when we try doing something that we need to do, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as we, as you know, certainly as Ming gets up to speed and works with the academics on reflective writing right now, then that may provide a nice authentic context for trying some new ideas out. It might be, Ming, that, you know, you run into some problems, then Agnes can work through those as worked examples in the next session.
Yeah. Well, I thought that would be the next step, that you look at examples, you like to figure out the output, and we try to do this together.
Yeah.
If you can come up with some example sentences that you are examining or studying, then send them to me, and then I will constitute. So that was my idea, to constitute the next course of the explanation of these.
Yeah. And obviously, likewise, Shabani and Sophie. Okay, so let's wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Agnes, and we will be in touch online meantime, but we appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Okay, well, thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you.
And see you next time.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.